we have some that want to share it today, and I'm going to ask Levi if he'll come and get it started.
For those of you that do not know me, my name is Levi Hansen. I've been one of Mark's best friends for the last 23 years. We wrote songs together, played music together, laughed together, cried together. We grew up together. In short, we considered ourselves brothers. Through the decades, I've come to know Mark's older brother Michael, his younger sister Michelle, his father David, his mother Joan, as family. How do you take 23 years of awesome friendship and condense it down to only a few pages for this one fleeting moment in time? How can you do justice in honoring a true master of writing? These impossible questions brought me to the Bible, which talks about friendship. In Ecclesiastes 4:9 through 10, it says, "Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, and has not another to lift him up." Let us lift each other up today. I think that what will become evident is that Mark had a positive impact on everyone he knew. I know that Mark would be touched by the tears we have all shed for him and support we are showing his family today. But I also know that Mark was a fun-loving goofball who liked laughing best. So, on that note, I'd like to share a few of Mark's favorite memories. In 1985, I was a new kid on the block in Blaine. I had no friends yet, and my cousin Sean Meyer was the only person that I knew in the area. I was visiting him in his townhome one day when a small buck-toothed boy with a Beatles mop-top hairdo poked his head from on top of bunk bed and asked slyly, "Who here can do the moonwalk?" And I answered with a question of my own: frontwards, sideways, or backwards? And for one of the only times that I've ever known Mark, he was speechless. After some impromptu breakdancing, we walked Mark home. Sean told me that Mark went to school with him at Blaine Christian Academy. Sean also said that he worked for Mark. When I asked him what the job was, he said, "Well, I'm Mark's bodyguard." "Really? He pays you to protect him?" "Yep. Tuna fish sandwiches." My parents divorced around that time. I was 12 years old, and the thing hurt me a lot. One day I started walking around the block aimlessly, and I came across Mark's house. I knocked on the door. His mom answered and said, "Mark, your friend is here." Mark came outside to play. The first thing he did was try to impress me. "Hey, you want to go meet some chicks?" Chicks? This 11-year-old kid already had a girlfriend? And not only that, he had multiple girlfriends? This I had to see. So we walked to a neighbor's yard. Mark waved to someone in a window that looked like a mother. She smiled, and we went into the backyard. Suddenly, about 7 or 8 girls shouted out Mark's name and started chasing him around the yard trying to kiss him. Mark laughed, and he looked at me for approval. The only problem was, these girls were only about 6 years old. It became clear to me that the person whom I had just made friends with had an incredible imagination. After meeting his chick entourage, we went back to his house for lunch. "Hey, do you like pizza?" "Yes, I do." I watched as Mark took a piece of bread, smashed it with his palms, poured ketchup on it, added slices of cheese, and finally ripped up and threw on some bologna to top it off. He stuck this concoction in the microwave for a minute and then proudly handed me Mark's homemade pizza. Mark's imagination didn't stop there. In fact, it rarely ever stopped. I would come over and suggest activities, and the results were nearly always the same. I'd say, "Hey Mark, should we get a game of football going?" He'd say, "Nah, let's imagine." So off we'd go into the woods. Mark was usually the superhero saving people, and I was usually some predator-type creature turning invisible and attacking the innocents. Mark loved to play the good guy. One day Mark called me on the phone, and my sister Nina answered. "Hi, is Levi there? Just a minute. Lily!" "Hello?" "Why, hello there, Lily!" I had to pull the phone away from my ear because Mark was laughing so hard. We both knew that the damage was done, and Lily became his nickname for me the rest of my life, and the rest of his life. He called me Lily, and I called him Marcus. In the early years, Mark avoided sports, and even sports video games. For instance, the only way he would play baseball in his Intellivision, which is a video game system, with me, was if I agreed to use the controller that was broken. This meant that he'd be rolling on the floor laughing as my outfielder ran against the wall, and in the meantime, he circled the bases scoring runs galore. That's one thing about Mark that most of his friends know. Even when he drove you nuts, somehow it was pretty much worth it, putting up with it, just to be his friend, because he was that special. Like when Mark, Kevin, Dylan, and I were allowed to use the Turnidge family video camera. We made our own action movies without a script, just made it up as we went along. Mark was always the protagonist, and I was often a humpback Quasimodo type idiot named Igor, or more often I had to play the female roles like his secretary. Even when it came at the price of non-stop imagination, make-believe, broken controllers, dressing like a woman, being Mark's friend was always fun enough to make it worth the sacrifice.